This is the story of copper's place in the sun. The coppery light of dawn shines on a new world of uses for copper that make possible much of the everyday world we take for granted. Where is all this copper? Often too well hidden or too familiar to be noticed. Even if you could fly above our cities on the wings of a bird, you would not see it. Copper has become so closely entwined in our civilization, we hardly notice its universal presence. Where there is energy to be transferred, corrosion to be resisted, difficult shapes to be worked, copper and its alloys, brass and bronze, are there. Often invisible behind the scenes, but an indispensable part of the modern world. Where is the red metal? As you rise up in the morning and go about your daily round, you pass it, but do not see it. Where is the red metal? Put aside the familiar, time-worn view. Look through the eyes of a child and see the world golden with sunshine, smiling, light-hearted, and new.
Soda bottle, beer bottle, water from the sea. Telephone, television, and tell it to me.
That was a tip. That was that ball. Let's see hit this one.
Where is the red metal? Everywhere and nowhere. Under streets, inside walls, and in your pocket. Copper, from the Latin cuprum, from the island Cyprus, where originally found. Atomic number 29, atomic weight 63.54, occurs in reddish cubic crystals with remarkable properties. Copper and its alloys are inherently resistant to corrosion, slow to oxidize, maintaining strength and integrity in damp, salty, and otherwise corrosive atmospheres. Experiment shows that copper is extremely malleable and ductile. And it, or one of its many alloys, can be shaped to almost any form the mind can imagine. And copper, of course, is one of the best conductors of electricity and heat, a better conductor than any other non-precious metal. Copper has its uses in commerce. All American coins are alloyed with copper. But look past the penny to the outer world where copper is at work. Look over the wall to see the work of falling water, harnessed to generate electric power. A job unthinkable without copper. Look past the falling water to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Inside a hydroelectric station, a giant generator is being built. Its 31-foot rotor assembled with 88 pole pieces, wound with 45,760 pounds of purest copper wire that will soon whirl above the falling water. Spinning within the stator winding, itself an intricately conceived interweaving of 24,000 pounds of copper wire. Electricity can be made from the work of water, from coal or oil or steam, or from an atomic reactor. But wherever the energy comes from, the transformation to electricity is made by copper, providing power to run the technology on which our world depends. Soon the generator will be complete. Then the tense moments of final preparation will begin. The white rushing beauty of falling water waits for useful work. The turbine is ready, the shaft is poised, the completed generator motionless above. In the control room, years of work are reaching the final countdown.
Okay, and the brakes released? Cooling water is normal. We'll get the initial bearing temperature readings and just stand by.
A giant copper-wound top is waiting to spin out the work of the world. Look through the eyes of a child.
Who are all those people out there?
They're the audience. They're imagining us.
Aren't we really here?
Of course not. We're imaginary, all in the mind.
Couldn't they pretend?
Do you know what would happen if they did that?
What?
Watch. How's voltage on number 2?
Increasing.
I'd better fix the frequency.
Is the voltage holding steady? Steady she goes.
Better put number 2 on the line.
She's on the line now.
Good.
Voltages, currents, reactances, power factors. The variables of the electrical world channeled and controlled through networks of purest copper. The standard of conductivity. 101% conductive is copper. Electricity, power to run our world, its standard bearers marching immovably over hills and valleys, linking high voltage arms overhead. And with the development of extra high voltage conductors, underground cable is becoming more and more widely used. Slender, pure copper conductors slipping invisibly beneath the land. Under the streets of cities are the richest copper lodes in the world. Pure copper planted by the hand of man. Electrical cable and wire, hidden veins and arteries of the city, carrying the electricity that is its lifeblood. The boroughs of New York are now linked in a network of 345,000 volt underground conductors. These giant cables begin with single strands of pure copper wire. Added to, grouped, twisted and formed into precise shapes. Wrapped with insulation and twisted again on monstrous spinning wheels. Wrapped and rewrapped and wrapped again with insulation to withstand the pressure of the power they will carry. Impregnated with insulating oil and wrapped again. And finally protected with a spiral wire to resist abrasion when they are installed. These slender copper threads double the electrical capacity of the city. Beneath the streets, copper-carried power moves behind the scenes. Power to light 1 million offices and homes. To heat and cool 10 million rooms, to turn 100 million motors, large and small. Power for a city, an Arabian Nights dream made possible by copper. Take a handful of stars and follow us to another part of the copper world. Sidewalk superintendents see more copper every day. Copper, of course, carries electrical power to every part of the building. And water supply lines no longer have to be cut and fitted, threaded and joined at every bend. Flexible and rigid copper water supply has revolutionized and simplified the world of plumbing. Here again, copper has provided a way to do a better job at a lower cost. Thin wall copper waste pipe is now approved by all modern building codes, replacing heavy and bulky cast iron. Copper drain can be prefabricated in the shop, saving time and money. And its ease of handling saves much more. Sturdy enough for years of faultless service, yet so light a child could lift it. exteriors, bronze curtain wall brings copper's warmth, beauty, and lasting qualities. And copper roofing is still the most lasting and maintenance-free material available. Over the years, a leak-proof, maintenance-free copper roof more than repays its initial cost. Copper, brass, and bronze can be protected from the elements to maintain their new appearance with protective finishes. Or they can be allowed to age naturally, a colorful effect which has been found pleasing to the eye since the days of antiquity. The bronze doors of the Temple of Romulus in Rome, still in service after almost 2,000 years of exposure to the elements. As in the Kennecott building in Salt Lake City, Utah, and the Seagram building in New York, more and more imaginative architects are turning to copper to provide a striking appearance for the exterior surfaces of important buildings. And inside buildings, from the greatest skyscrapers to the smallest homes, new ways are being found to apply the inherent warmth and beauty of copper, bronze, brass, and other copper alloys. In every room of the house, copper can be found. And the brilliance and luster of copper metals can be preserved with coatings such as incralac, created by the International Copper Research Association, research arm of the copper industry. Behind the scenes, copper is at work, providing maintenance-free service for electricity, heat, and hot water. Once alloyed, copper wears a coat of many colors. The reds and russets of pure copper, the various yellows of the brasses, the golds and browns of bronze, the silvery shades of the copra nickels, and the greens and blues of oxide coatings. The warmth of copper can now be found in a fireplace. And a kitchen without copper just wouldn't feel like home. Where does all this copper come from? Pure native copper can still be found, but native copper is very rare. Even the 3 and 4% ores of a half-century ago could not meet today's demand for more copper.
Ooh! It's the biggest hole in the ground I've ever seen.
It's Kennecott's Bingham Mine, the biggest open-pit copper mine in the country.
You mean all these rocks are copper?
Less than 1%, but they get it out.
Joe! You stop that! It isn't funny, Joe! Stop throwing those rocks! You'll ruin their mine! Now you've done it.
Let's get out of here.
What was 50 years ago a mountain meadow has become a man-made valley, over 2,000 feet deep, almost 2 miles across. More copper has been produced from this mine than from any other single source of copper in the world. Kennecott has pioneered the special techniques needed to mine and process low-grade ores, which can be found in great quantities. Even when the overburden of rock and rubble are removed, the areas now being worked here at Bingham average less than 16 pounds of copper per ton of ore. Test borings show that the ore body beneath these benches is great enough to provide a plentiful supply of copper for generations to come. These ores must be enriched by flotation and other special techniques before they are ready for the smelter, where the copper is finally released by fire. Released and purified by fire, and then to the refinery to be further purified by electrolytic refining. From crushed rock, this glowing copper has been transformed. Then cast into wire bars, cakes, and billets, but still not ready to do the work of the world. First, the copper must move to the fabricator to be alloyed, tempered, and formed to useful shapes. Most of Kennecott's production of copper, 80% in fact, is sold to independent fabricators. Tube and rod mills and wire drawing mills, where copper takes another step towards useful purpose. Now alloyed to become copper, brass, bronze, cupro-nickel, and many other alloys. Now in many forms: sheet, strip, wire, rod, and tube. Move to the world of factories, where they become the hardware that fastens our world together. 10,000 brass screws an hour to resist corrosion on boat or ship, to decorate an exposed surface, to eliminate rust, and new alloys are constantly being created. Incremet 800 bronze can now make glass bottle molds faster, more economically, with longer runs and finer finishes. To satisfy our never-ending thirst, copper is at work behind the scenes. Travel with us to another part of the copper world. A locomotive shop where the 500 horsepower motors of a diesel-electric locomotive are being installed. Copper windings and commutators to translate power to motion. And in the locomotive's 3,000 horsepower generator, more tons of copper to feed power to the motors. In the wheel trucks, bronze bearings, tougher than steel, to withstand the million-pound thrust and lurch of the locomotive. Precise in tolerance and carrying lubrication to provide 1,000,000 miles of wear. Even the iron and steel we see all around us is alloyed with copper to provide added toughness for the hardest jobs and the longest hauls. Travel with us again to a ship ready for launching. The last touches of copper anti-fouling paint are being applied. Its great bronze propeller now still and waiting. 55,000 pounds of machined bronze to carry goods across the 7 seas. Within the ship, tons of copper and copper alloys are used for condensers and pumps, wiring and piping, winches, bearings, fittings, and shielded wire to resist the corrosive action of salt-laden air. And the final touch, the traditional bronze bell to ring sound and true.
I don't know anything about launching ships.
Don't worry. The audience will imagine it right anyway. Here we go again.
Come on, honey. Hit it.
And if you want to extrude rods of metal into long tubes and twist them into odd shapes with exponential flares and have them sound like a brass band, there is only one material to use. By the end of its run, this diesel has produced enough excess heat to melt every rivet and bolt, every flange and steel plate in it down to a puddle. This heat has been led away to a copper heat exchanger whose honeycomb surfaces give up the engine's heat peaceably to the surrounding air. Wherever heat is to be transferred, copper's conductivity can do the job. Add heat to pure water, malt, and hops in a good copper kettle. Test the brew. Age till ready, and produce a refreshing glass of beer. In many parts of the world, supplies of fresh water are dwindling. But seawater is plentiful, if not drinkable.
Wow, what's that?
It's a desalination plant.
A what?
It's a place where they make fresh water out of salt water. They use a lot of copper.
Where's all the copper?
Not here.
Not here.
Not here either.
Then where?
Well, if you really want to know, each of those big reactors contains over 13,000 pounds of special corrosion-resistant copper tubing. Steam goes in with the brine at the top, and the brine is flash-boiled down the tubes. It goes from one reactor to the other, and the brine gets stronger and stronger, and the vapors get purer and purer. At the end, the condensed vapors are pure water. Now do you understand?
Nope.
Well, it works. Only copper can resist the corrosion of all that brine.
What's this? Seems to be looking for a clue.
A grease spot. That means something.
Secret Agent 00, age 7, knows his copper and his cars.
Aha! I judge this to be the experimental copper car created by the Copper Development Association. Copper disc brakes, the latest thing. And handsome brass wheel covers. I suppose you'd call them hubcaps. Let's have a look under the bonnet. Aha! The heat exchanger. You'd call it the radiator. It's pure copper underneath that black paint. And the electrical system uses miles of copper wire, naturally. Seems to be a good deal of brass trim coated with inquilac. Protects brass and copper for years. Now for a look at the interior. Ho, ho, ho. Miss Copper Galore, I believe.
Hello there. Shall we go for a little spin?
Wow, what a beauty. The car, that is. Don't you wish you had a copper car?
To go somewhere or to send a message, copper is indispensable.
More copper?
Of course.
Where is it?
Inside, silly. It takes miles and miles and miles of copper wire to make telephones work. What did you think they used?
I use Dixie cups and string.
Well, they don't.
Whether it be in the familiar telephone or the latest advance in space communication, copper wire conducts our voices, pictures, and ideas to every corner of the globe. Where is the copper in the modern world? Everywhere and nowhere and in
Generators, switchyards, electric cables, buildings, plumbing, roofs and gables, living room, bathroom, cellar and kitchen, cars and ships and trains with a yard to switch in, soda bottle, beer bottle, water from the sea, telephone, television, and tell it to me.
We have skipped about in the present, but the future of copper is even brighter. How shall we know it? Through research reaching toward the world that will be. Applied research to find ways to recover copper from poorer and poorer ores, to improve alloys and fabricating techniques. And the never-ending search of geological exploration to meet the future needs of industry. Searching through valley and mountain fastness for the ores that will supply copper for our children's grandchildren. Boring deep into the Earth's crust to find the mines of the future. Somewhere in these sample cores are locked the bits of copper that will play their part in the future technology yet unknown. And beyond all these is Kennecott's basic research program at its Ledgemont laboratory. From these probings into the deepest secrets of metals will come the unknown advances of the future. Perhaps a stainless copper or copper alloyed plastics. Copper's future is bright with promise. But the ends of this basic search are still unguessed. Look again through the eyes of a child, for only our children will know the future. And beyond the reach of our subtlest imaginings are the commonplace, everyday things of their world that is yet to be.